Hi friends, welcome to this video. If you're new here, my name is Rachelle. I am so excited for this video because today in this video, I will be combining two of my favorite things. I will be combining my love for books and reading and Harry Potter. Yeah, so today in this video, I will be ranking the Harry Potter books from worst to best. I absolutely adore the Harry Potter series and it will always hold a special place in my heart, but there are some things in the books that I loved a lot and some things that I didn't like so much. So of course that means out of the entire series, I do have my favorites. So in this video, I will be sharing with you all of my thoughts on each book. I believe the series I own are the first edition copies. These books with this cover are so old, I don't even think they sell them anymore. As you can see, the books I own are a mix of hardcover and paperbacks. This honestly annoys me so much because I'm that person who likes to have the entire series look the same on my bookshelf. It just looks so much cleaner on your shelf when the books of the entire series are all the same shape and height. Having the series a mix of paperbacks and hardcovers on my bookshelf just makes it look so uneven, and it sadly is just something I have to ignore. Let me know in the comments down below if having a series a mix of paperbacks and hardcovers bothers you like it does with me. I should tell you guys that because I'm sharing my thoughts with you on the books, there will be spoilers, so if you have yet to read the series or watch the movies, proceed with this video at your own risk. I'm just saying you have been warned. Alright, before we get into this video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, click the bell icon to stay up to date of when and what I post, and give this video a thumbs up. And without further ado, let's just get into ranking the Harry Potter books from worst to best. Starting off at number 7, we have Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, which is book number 2 in the series. This book is my least favorite book in the entire series. Let me tell you why. First of all, a large portion of this book, Hermione wasn't even in it because she was one of the victims petrified by the basilisk. I definitely feel like the plot suffered without the iconic trio together. I mean, in my opinion, the friendship Harry, Ron, and Hermione have together is one of the best parts in the entire series. And when you take one out of the equation, it's just not the same and it's not okay. It also makes me wonder if that's what helped stretch the book out longer so she wouldn't solve the mystery right away. Because if I can remember, being the smarty pants that Hermione is, she literally had all the answers by the time she was petrified. And Hermione being petrified forced Harry and Ron to solve the mystery themselves, which obviously allowed the story to continue a little while longer before coming to an end. Another thing I don't like about this book is Professor Lockhart. He was so annoying. His obsession with fame and stupidity just drove me nuts. Every time he appeared on the page, I grew more annoyed. What happened to him in the end? Good riddance. Honestly, Professor Lockhart plays a huge part on why I rank this book last. Also, although this book starts setting up and introducing clues for the later installments, the overall plot of the book was still quite bland and not fleshed out enough to make the story captivating in comparison to the last half of the series. Moving on to number 6 on my list, which is Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. This book is the first book in the series. I gotta say, this book was alright. I mean, I loved it and I was hooked when I first read it, but once I started reading the rest of the series, I kinda just forgot about this book. Again, comparing this to the other installments, it wasn't as eventful, fleshed out, or dense. When I'm looking at the overall story arc of the entire series, the plot thickens so much more after this book, and of course it gets so much better and it's more engaging to read. By the end of the series, it definitely feels like we've come a long way since this book. I think for me, something that holds this book back is that the central mystery is not as layered as it is in the other books. This book actually has quite a bit of setups to get through, and it just seems like the trio gets through them one after the other, and they're almost always on the right track to the resolution. It just felt a little too perfect, if you know what I mean. The only real error they made was thinking Snape was the villain. I really wish there were more scenarios where they were wrong. I just feel like it would be a more interesting read if there were more setbacks. Ultimately though, I think having less setbacks is what made this book the shortest book in the entire series. One specific part of the book that bothered me was how the Philosopher's Stone was guarded. Why do some of the finest wizards in the land leave a great treasure only guarded by a series of fun obstacles and puzzles, rather than, I don't know, hardcore defenses? The fact that Harry, Ron, and Hermione, 11-year-olds might I add, got past their defenses, I just think that part of the story is a little flawed. Like, are they really some of the greatest wizards then if first-year wizards were able to get past their so-called strong defenses? This book sits above Chamber of Secrets for me because it was a quick, short read that did a good job of setting up the Harry Potter world, which is so important for a fantasy read. Also, this is the book where the iconic trio becomes a thing. I absolutely love how they don't immediately become friends from the beginning. I really like how it took defeating and saving each other from a troll to bring the three of them together. I really just can't rank this book last because it is the book that made me fall in love with the characters and the world forever. Taking the 5th spot on my list is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. This is the 7th and last installment of the series. I honestly did enjoy this book for the most part. There was quite a few things to love about it. One reason being it's the last book in the series and it just wraps up the entire story so well, and it just answers all the questions we may have had since the first book. This book gave the series such a beautiful ending even though literally all of my favorite characters died. I just like to think that they died heroes, which makes me less sad. Dumbledore's return was also a nice surprise, even though I know a lot of people didn't like his character because he raised Harry to one day defeat Voldemort like a pig to slaughter. But clearly that doesn't bother Harry, and I have to say I'm with him on that. I actually didn't know some people didn't like Dumbledore for that reason until like a couple months ago when one of you guys told me that in the comments of one of my past Harry Potter videos. Something I love about this book is that it revealed the truth of Snape's past. If you didn't know, Professor Snape is my all-time favorite character in the entire series. This book really just showed what an intricate and selfless character Snape is. For crying out loud, he was a freaking triple agent and Voldemort never even knew. I just love everything about his character. But all of that being said, these points I just made wasn't enough to make me rank this book higher. There was one big thing about this book that just didn't sit well with me, and that is why this book sits at number 5 for me. What really upset me and made this book a little less engaging was the fact that Harry, Ron, and Hermione were no longer students at Hogwarts and there was no Quidditch. Until I read this book, I didn't realize how big of a part Hogwarts played in making me a fan of this series. Like, I know this book breaks away from the predictable school year plot, but by this point in the series, I've just gotten used to it and I've also become fond of it. I'm not gonna lie, in the first chunk of the book, when Harry was looking for the Horcruxes, especially in the forest, and without Hogwarts in the picture, I kind of got a little bored. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's not engaging at all. There were moments where it was definitely action-packed, but I just couldn't get into the story as easily as I did with the other books. Taking the cast away from the main setting just wasn't it for me. Other than that, I liked the book a lot, especially when it crossed the halfway point because that's when I became hooked. Sitting at number 4 on my list is the 4th book in the series, which is Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. I had a really difficult time ranking this book just because I enjoyed reading this book all the way through. This book was a chunky one, but it was well paced, it was action-packed, and definitely exhilarating to read. It was a page turner for me. There were just so many great things about it. For example, there was Cedric. I can't explain why I love Cedric so much, I just do. It made me really sad when he died. Also, in this book, characters are deepened and they begin to grow. I just loved reading about the Triwizard Tournament, and Voldemort's resurrection and return literally just set the entire story on fire, because the series just takes off from this point. You know, stuff just gets real in this book. This book being the middle installment of the series, it was a really great transitional book. The biggest transitional moment was of course the resurrection of Voldemort. You know, we just go through the early carefree days where you-know-who was merely just a threat to him being very much alive. This transition felt so powerful, especially when Harry and Cedric were in the maze to them being in the graveyard. In this book, we also have the chapter from the perspective of the Muggle Frank, which was really different and something I liked a lot. Honestly, right now, I am having a really hard time drawing up things I didn't like about this book. I really don't think I have anything negative to say about this book. I just remember finishing this book and immediately needing to pick up the next one. I just could not wait to see what happened next. Alright, taking the 3rd place spot on my list is Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, and this is the 5th book in the Harry Potter series. I also had a difficult time ranking this book because this was also one of my favorites. Okay, so in this book, Umbridge really pissed me off, and the turmoil she caused was really frustrating, but that actually didn't make me dislike the book. I think the drama with Umbridge was actually one of the things that kept me hooked throughout the book. Her presence was just kind of compelling. Plus, Fred and George's legendary escape from Hogwarts, chef's kiss. That was one of my favorite moments in the book. What I really liked about this book was how it wasn't action-packed to the brim. Yes, there was action, but I feel like this book took more of its time to develop its characters. You really get to learn more about who they are, and you get to see them transition from teenagers to young adults. Especially Harry, because in this book, we get to see him deal with all the trauma that he's experienced so far. One of those traumas being the death of his friend, Cedric. You know, I just had to bring that up because it's Cedric. Character development is just one of my favorite things in any these stories, and it's just something I always look for. I feel like this is an unpopular opinion, but I actually like the relationship between Cho and Harry. I think a lot of people don't like it because the awkward and cringeworthy relationship was unnecessary to the plot, but I like it because of how much it resembled the reality. I mean, it's young love. A cringeworthy relationship is just normal at that age. Another part of this book that I loved a lot was the private lessons Harry had with Snape. Although they were practically at each other's throats all the time, the dynamic they had in those moments was just quite interesting to read about. Also, in this book, we get a better sense of who Snape is and where his loyalties lie. This is where we get to see a new side of him, and he just isn't some cold-hearted ass. The few things I didn't like about this book was the death of Sirius. He was also one of my favorite characters, and him dying literally ripped my heart out of my chest. Also, I didn't really like the brain room and the Ministry of Magic. Maybe I was reading this chapter when I was kind of exhausted and I wasn't 100% paying attention to the story, but I feel like the brains just came out of nowhere. Didn't Ron summon a brain and it just flew out of the tank and unraveled itself, then started wrapping itself around Ron like tentacles or something? Honestly, I found that part incredibly strange and confusing and just unnecessary. I really think the book could have done without it. Alright, now let's talk about my second favorite book in the entire series, and that is Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. I almost ranked this book as my favorite book in the series. It really was a tough decision again. This book played a huge part in setting up the story in the final installment. Tensions were really high in this book, which also made it such a good read. There are just so many things I loved about this book. This book introduced a lot of vital information about the wizarding world that we didn't know before. Things are coming together and questions you've had are slowly being answered. I mentioned earlier that I love character development in stories. Well, this book had a ton of character development. Not only do we get to learn more about Harry, but we also get to learn more about Draco, what he's up to and who he is as a person, and how he doesn't have what it takes to kill Dumbledore. We also get to learn more about Tom Riddle and his past. This is probably not a surprise to you guys, but the main reason why I like this book so much is because it highlights Severus Snape in extreme depth. Throughout this book, we kind of get to learn how complex of a character Snape is. The final twist in the novel, when Snape revealed that he was the Half-Blood Prince, easily one of my favorite parts in the book, maybe even in the entire series. Snape is just such a crucial character in this book. I mean, come on, his name is in the title of the book. Do I need to say more? Dumbledore's death at the end of this book was tragic, but honestly, I think it was pretty necessary for Harry to grow into the person he was in Deathly Hallows to defeat Voldemort. I think that's all I have to say about this book. I don't think I have anything negative to say about it. Alright friends, coming in at number 1 as my favorite book in the entire series is Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. This book wasn't as action-packed or as dark as the other ones. It's a little more toned down, but it has some memorable moments that makes your heart feel all warm and fuzzy. The plot of this book was just amazing and definitely a page turner. Let me just tell you why I love this book so much. This book was the book that introduced Sirius and Lupin to us. They are my two other favorite characters apart from Snape. I'd say that itself is a really good reason to love this book. I mean, Sirius is just straight up such a funny character, and also such a fun and amazing godfather to Harry. Also, the fact that he was the dog, that twist blew my mind away. And Lupin was just the best defense against the dark arts professor in the entire series. Not only did his lessons seem like fun, but he was also so sweet to Harry. He was honestly like another parent to Harry, and it just touched my heart. This book also had a great side plot that was more developed than the others. The story with Buckbeak was amazing. It just tied into the main story so well, and it gave us a reason to sympathize for Hagrid and hate Draco. For those of you out there who love Draco, I'm sorry. I also love the Marauders map element in this book, especially when Snape caught Harry with it. That was one of my favorite moments. Oh, we also can't forget Hogsmeade, because that was another great part about the book. It was also absolutely hilarious when Harry blew up his aunt, because she really did deserve that. And I was actually surprised when he left home with no plan and nowhere to go. It was also so funny when Harry disarmed Snape in the Shrieking Shack. And it is also at that point where we get to see some good within Snape. Like, no matter what he says, we all know Snape went in there to protect Harry and his friends. I have no complaints over this book. It was a fantastic read all the way through, and while we're still talking about the story, the film was also the best one in my opinion. Alright friends, that is my ranking of the Harry Potter books from my least favorite to my favorite. I hope you enjoyed hearing about my thoughts of each book. Let me know in the comments down below how you would rank each book in the series and whether or not you agree or disagree with some of the comments I made. I would really love to hear your your thoughts and opinions. If you haven't already done so, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys in my next video. I love you guys. Bye!
Pull the key out the ignition. Run your mouth but I never listen. You hold me back, will never last. Keep talking all your shit. Wondering how all this started. You left me broken hearted. You flip my words, yeah, this love hurts. Keep talking all your shit.